So I'm going to show you how to ink up some Intaglio plates and then the collagraph plates that I had made during class. You want to put your gloves on if you have them, kind of keep your hands nice and clean. So I'm going to just squeeze out a little bit of ink to a nice clean surface. That should be enough for all these plates. Don't need a whole lot. You want to work that ink a little bit, just kind of get it ready for application. Yeah, this looks pretty good. All right, so you're gonna take your applicator. I'm just gonna scoop up a little bit because these plates are pretty small. We're gonna see how these turn out. All right, here's one. There's two. And don't forget, before you even start doing this, put your water in, or put your paper in the water to start soaking. Because you don't want to be frantically trying to get your paper ready just immediately before you print. I mean, you should have put your paper in the water before you even start inking your plates up. Remember, when you're inking these plates up, you don't need to use a whole lot of ink. Because you have to remember, you're going to be wiping away most of it as well. So just kind of keep that in mind. You don't need to put a whole lot of ink on. Also, just a fair warning, putting gloves on immediately after wearing gloves is incredibly difficult because your hands are a little sweaty and they just don't go on that well. All right, now onto the collagraph plates. And similar to the Intaglio plates, you don't need a whole lot of ink because, like I said, this is all going to be worked around, and for the most part, a lot of it's going to be wiped off with the tarlatan. And also just keep in mind, you don't necessarily have to cover the entire plate with ink because that tarlatan is also going to move the ink around and get it into all the little nooks and crannies. And I'll show you that in a moment. Man, that was a perfect amount of ink, I think. I hope. Set that aside, and then grab your tarlatan. Remember, that's the starched cheesecloth that came in your kits. And just one by one, working in a circular motion, work that ink into the lines and tacks and shapes into your plate. And every now and then, move the tarlatan around so it's on a little bit cleaner surface, so it wipes off more ink. And this is another reason why you don't want to have a whole lot of really heavy, thick items on your plate. Is it's just gonna gunk up the ink. Like, you're just gonna basically have a bunch of globs because you won't be able to wipe it properly. All right, there's one. Oh, wow. So that's what happens when you don't glue your material down properly. It ends up doing that, which we're just going to kind of work with. Yeah, that was that plastic bag, that grocery bag that I ended up applying onto the plate. But you know what? We're just going to kind of work with that. Maybe even just pull the rest of that off. That's kind of a crappy material. But it did, oddly enough, end up leaving some interesting texture in the gesso, and the ink will totally pick that up. Or that will pick up the ink. And we'll leave that light. That kind of looks nice. Almost done. So if any of you use the corrugated cardboard, you also want to be careful because of how much ink is in those little nooks and crannies. You might want to go in and just kind of try to wipe that a little bit more heavily than the rest of the plate, because it'll end up giving you globs of ink when you print, which that might be something you want. If it's not, I mean, you could take a Q-tip and just kind of run it along there. Yeah, you could just sit there and go like this with a Q-tip and just kind of wipe off all that excess, but it's still going to be leaving ink in those little nooks and crannies, so that'll still print. Yeah. All right, and this is the gesso. That's nice and sturdy. It's not really going to come off. Yeah, that's kind of got some nice texture to it, you can see. Yeah, so when you're wiping, you basically just want to make sure that it's kind of nice and consistent. You can notice that this is a little bit darker, so I'm going to wipe a little bit more off of that edge. Yeah, that's looking nice. Yeah, so you can see that. All right, so that's that. And then I think this was simply like a ripped off piece of cardboard, just glued onto another piece of tape board. Yeah, and that's got some nice texture as well. It's a little more subtle, but you can see the texture down here, which is really kind of nice, and even some of these lines are going to end up showing up. They should show up. Right. And then just take like a piece of newsprint. If you have phone books for some reason laying around, one, we would totally take them in the studio. Two, you can definitely use them for wiping the plate. That's basically just getting rid of all the lines that the tarlatan ended up causing. So basically, like you can see the lines here, where they almost look like brush marks. You don't want that. And you do need to decipher whether or not those marks are from the material that you ended up gluing onto the block, onto your plate, or if it's from the tarlatan. So there's that one. Yeah, like this one ends up having lines. You can see that. All these lines, that's from the tarlatan. Yeah, that's kind of got a really nice, lovely texture to it. So that one, and I think this one's left. All right, that's looking pretty good. All right, so on to the copper plates. So this one is aqua tint with stop out. The stop out was used to, it was applied after the aqua tint. Basically the stop out acts, it's a stop out. It basically acts as a block when it's in the etching, when it's in the acid to be etched. So as you can see, like obviously where the stop out was, it didn't end up getting bitten by the acid. One plate. And this one, I believe, is just aqua tint with a hint of scraping and burnishing, so we'll see how that ends up turning out. Yeah, you can see where it was scraped and burnished. Really subtle. Is that one? All right, plate number 3. This one, believe is Sugar Lift with Aqua Tint. I think I may have actually sprayed the Aqua Tint on immediately after the Sugar Lift instead of putting the hard ground down. So you can see where this is where the Sugar Lift was. This is the Aqua Tint. Oh, this is a test. This is the test that I did today. This is what I'm going to be demoing in the next class period is soft ground, which I'm actually really excited to see how this ends up turning out. So this is half soft ground, half Aqua Tint. No Sugar Lift was done to this. Yeah, so this is soft ground, this is soft ground. This was made with an anti-skid mat, and this was made with tin foil, and then this is the Aqua Tint. And then this is nothing. Nothing was done there. The plate was just left bare. And then this one is Dry Point that I did a while ago, like a few years ago. And then I did Aqua Tint over it and Stop Out to block out areas of the Dry Point. The Stop Out was really thin, so I think the acid ended up actually etching through it or biting through it. And so we'll see how that ends up turning out. I mean, the Dry Point is still obviously very much there. Yeah, so you can see where Dry Point was done. That one. And then this one is just Aqua Tint, maybe a little bit of Stop Out. Oh, this had a little bit of sugar lift on it. So this is Sugar Lift with Aqua Tint. So, yeah, so you can see the Aqua Tint, and then this is a little bit of Sugar Lift in those areas. And this one, I believe is Sugar Lift. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how this is going to turn out. This kind of seems like it didn't bite very well, but we will see. All right, and then the same with this as with the collagraph. Going over it with a piece of either newsprint or phone book. If you have really old books that you don't read or are damaged, you can use those to wipe the plates. Yeah, that might not turn out very well. That's okay. But yeah, this is simply so you can get rid of the lines that the wiping with tarlatan ended up making. Up. And last but not least, you don't need to worry about this so much with the collagraph plates just because they're not really even edged. Like you can see this has a pretty raggedy edge to it. With the copper plates though, you do want to take a rag and just wipe off the edges. Ready to print. And you do want to be delicate and aware of like what you're doing when you're doing this as well, because when you sit there and touch this with your hands, even when you're wearing gloves, like it's also like you're essentially getting ink off of the gloves and onto the plate. So you do want to be careful and pay close attention to that as well. All right, and here's the last one. Yeah, I don't think this one's gonna print really at all. All right. And now I'm gonna wash my hands because one of my gloves broke, and then we will print.